Welcome to the Stay Spicy podcast, where we have honest, fun, and spicy conversations about being your authentic self. All right, welcome back to the Stay Spicy podcast. This season, we're talking all about entrepreneurship and with a specific focus on women entrepreneurs because we are them and we fucking love them.
Yeah.
So if you've always wanted to start a business, if you already have a business, if you're just curious about that business boss life, this podcast and this episode are for you. Our guest from today's episode is, I just called her Allie fucking Stone because she is the OG badass. In my opinion, Allie Stone is the founder of The Inspired Leader. She is a speaker, coach, and culture shifter. And here are some fun facts about Allie. So she first became an entrepreneur when she was the wee age of 22. And she was bought into a restaurant franchise in Western Canada. Then over the next 15 years, she grew that from a single location to 17 and millions of dollars. In 2018, her husband suffered a brain injury after running a marathon in Tokyo, which propelled Allie into a completely different reality and ultimately career. Still an entrepreneur, she then decided to leave the restaurant business and create a new business called The Inspired Leader, which is to empower women leaders. And she's expanded it beyond that to organizing large-scale women's leadership and wellness conferences. She's created a community for women entrepreneurs through business masterminds. She is also a sought-after keynote speaker across Western Canada and internationally, and is now teaching other people how to be keynote speakers.
Allie, I hope you get to sleep sometimes.
Sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah. So thanks so much for coming. Just want to wish you a warm welcome to the podcast today. So we had the pleasure of being at the Inspire and Awaken event a couple weeks ago here in Edmonton at the Royal Glenora Club. And I have to say it was, for me, like a premier women's conference, but also something different. Mm-hmm. So as an entrepreneur, I've been to a lot of business conferences. I've been to a lot of communications conferences, policy conferences. And as a woman in business, I always felt like some of those conferences were talking to me like there was something wrong with me. So there are, sessions on imposter syndrome, how to be more aggressive, things like that. So what I loved about Inspire and Awaken was it was a place where you could just show up authentically as yourself. And I felt that in the room. It wasn't a huge group of people. Every vendor, every speaker had a unique story. Everybody could just walk in as they were. And secondly, it was something that really blended together health and work.
Yeah.
So that's something that we don't talk a lot about. I saw, when I saw a tarot reader and then I saw things like Reiki masters, massage therapists, I thought, okay, what does this have to do with? It's new for me, a new experience. But at the end of the 2 days, I was like, you know what? All this stuff is part of developing that personal identity and developing and finding your space in business, in life, whether you're a volunteer or running your own business. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you that feedback. I know you've heard a lot about that. So what we want to talk about today is your story. So how do we get to, from a 22-year-old entrepreneur to, the best keynote speaker we've ever heard in a long time?
Yep.
What's your story, Allie? Let's start at the beginning.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell you, I didn't want to be a fucking entrepreneur. I definitely didn't want to own restaurants. Like it wasn't my dream. I didn't feel like it was necessarily my calling. So it was this really interesting journey. So my husband we were only dating at this time. It was his dream. And so when I met him, he was like, one day I'm going to own a restaurant. And I was like, okay, whatever, like, going on our business about our lives. And then at 22, we have this opportunity to buy into Original Joe's. And I remember he sat me down and he was like, this is a really big deal. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And I was like, fuck no. Like, I don't want any part of this. Like, anyway.
So why did you do?
So he convinced me. I remember we went to the bank and they laughed us out the door and they were like, 22-year-olds think you're going to own a couple of restaurants and whatever. So we actually ended up getting the money from his parents. That was the only way we could get into this. And they loaned us the money. We had to pay it back like a mortgage payment. I remember we sat on the floor and ate craft dinner. We had nothing. Like we had nothing. And that first restaurant was the Original Joe's in Terwilliger, for people who might be in the area that watch this, but it struggled. So if you remember that area of the city, there was nothing there.
Right.
So we built that restaurant and we were looking at a farmer's field. Like there was no population. I don't know who decided to build a restaurant there. Somebody saw the vision, obviously, but at that time we were like, holy shit, we just invested everything we had and this isn't going to pan out. And I remember sitting down probably about a year in and saying to Chris, like, what are we going to do here? Like, I don't know if this is going to make it. And that was kind of like a pivotal moment for us, because we decided at that point that we were all in and we were going to figure it out. And it shifted the way we moved forward as entrepreneurs. And I remember having a conversation with him and being like, if we're going to do this, we just need to do this differently. Because there's so many restaurants out here that I didn't really want to own a restaurant, because restaurants weren't really known for treating people well or taking care of. It wasn't like this like big dream, right, of where I wanted to be. And so I was like, if we're going to do this, let's do it different. Let's just see what happens. Let's go all in. And so we worked really hard to create an amazing culture in Original Joe's. We paid people overtime. I know it sounds really small, but benefits, created a space where people could feel like they belonged and could come. For me, like ending up in the hospitality industry out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I wasn't clear on that. And so I kind of fell into it. And I think a lot of people fall into that industry for that reason. And so giving them a space where they could feel like it was home, that they could grow, was super powerful. So obviously Original Joe's exploded, unbeknownst to us at that time. And that restaurant became very successful. It's actually still one of the flagship restaurants of the entire Original Joe's chain. It grew to 98 locations. Our ownership group helped open many, many of the franchise stores, and we grew to 17 units. So we went from this team of like 40 people to over like 8 or 9 years to 550. Wow. And so I remember that journey being like, it was like literally, I felt like every day, it's almost like a cartoon, like you're running out the door and your jacket's half off and you're, running to work and then you're running in and right. And it's just like every day was just like a whiz. Like I don't really actually know what happened, but one thing I do recall very clearly saying to Chris in that time is like, who's going to fucking go to school? Somebody needs to get an MBA. Like we have all this business growing and like nobody knows what we're doing. We're just like really throwing spaghetti at a wall and like learning as we go. But that turned out to be like the greatest education I could have ever had. I don't think any schooling could have given me what that experience did. So I'll pause for a moment. I don't know if either of you have questions.
Well,
it's a lost story.
Yeah, I've so many things that I love in that. I mean, but just on your last point, and not to shit on schooling, anybody who decides to go, absolutely. But I think I link it back to what you said about it was failing and you thought, let's do it different. I feel like if you'd gone to school, they would not have taught you how to do it different. They would not have taught you to follow your heart and your gut and do exactly that. And it's, when you think about too the impact you can have on the people that work for you, you may think, oh, it's a bunch of people out of high school or they have, just a side job in the service industry. But if you have the right impact on someone, you never know what that's going to basically sprout for future. Because I met someone actually at your conference who had such a formative experience when she was between the ages of like 15 and 18 working at a restaurant that she just started her own business and launched it and named it after that restaurant because it had left such an impact on developing who she was and her confidence.
Mm-hmm. And so, I felt that all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I bet like there's those 500 people, how many careers and lives and different things did that initiate rather than just thinking. And I talk about this as well as a myth that like revenue growth at all costs is success. It's like,
don't get me started. You can get me started.
Yeah. All right. Get started. Let's hear what you think about that.
Well, I just think it's bullshit. But I mean, obviously revenue is the fuel for the fire, right? So if you don't have revenue, you can't do what you set out to do. But if our entire focus is on numbers instead of people, we're missing the entire point. Like, we're missing the entire point of life.
Oh yeah, people are the matches that start the fire, you know? Like, you need to lead with heart. And you know, to your point, education is an experience, and relationships, I mean, they're all intertwined. But when we talk about that in the first episode with the Miss, like, most people don't have MBAs that, or even degrees that are creating small businesses. So that's a big point too. So I love that you started something different that was very people centered.
Yeah. And that was my role. So as the organization grew, and when we got to this, like, I would call it the climax. Whoops, I hit my mic, sorry. The climax, right? The biggest point. My role was Director of Leadership Development and Culture, and I headed up social impact projects. And so all I got to do was work with people. And so people were always like, when are you and Chris going to have kids? And I was like, dude, I get your kids when they're 18 years old and they leave home and they're going through a lot of shit. And I have 550 of them. Like, I'm doing okay, you know? And so, but those experiences with those people have profoundly shaped my life, you know? Like, I've been part of their weddings, been to family funerals with them, had experiences that have completely changed who I am and who they are as people, because we believed in each other and we believed in building something great together. So
I just have to react to that comment, because it's like I just felt like a little fire start inside of me when you're talking about building all these successful businesses, being like a trailblazer in an industry, and somebody's comment to you is, when are you going to have kids?
I'm
like fuck right off.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the things you face.
Exactly.
Right? Even as
Who would ever say that
as
to
an
a guy?
owner, as a partner,
Yes.
I would be working in the restaurant and people would not know who I was, or like, you know, and they would, I'd walk to them, maybe serve something at a table, and they'd be like, so what are you taking in school? When are you going to get a real job? And I was
my
like,
God.
dude, I'm making more money than you. Like, and not that this is about money, but like, what are we talking about here, right? And so I faced that. And also, hospitality is an industry that's quite often looked down upon, right? You're looked on as a servant or a server. But I will tell you, it is so much more than that. And anybody who hasn't had an experience in hospitality in their life, I really feel like they missed out on something, because, yeah, the beauty that came from that for me was just, I don't want to cry about it today, but it was really, it was profound. It was profound.
Yeah. Well, and Allie, when you talk about leading with heart and you talk about the people, you weren't always encouraged to do it that way. And how did you break through that and say, you know what, I'm going to do it differently? And I'm going to lead with heart, and I'm not going to take the advice of consultants and business advisors.
Well, that happened to me when I left Original Joe's, and I started to build the Inspired Leader, and I wanted to build it around this idea of bringing the heart of humanity back to business. And I remember I talked to a few different people that I respected in the industry that were consultants and leadership development professionals, and I was like, what do you think about this idea? And all like doe-eyed and excited. And I remember this one person sitting me down and saying, like, you can't do that. That's far too soft. Like, no CEO is going to hire you. Nobody wants to hear that message in their company. Like, sure, there's something to it, but that is not how business is run. And I remember walking out of that conversation and being like, oh, and like actually very disheartened, right? Because I was all like, I'm going to do this. And it worked in Original Joe's, but then this person left me feeling like that was a one-off. And it was like this magical thing that we created and could never be recreated. And so I remember there was a big wrestling with myself, and I went home and I was like, what am I going to do with this? Like, do I have to start all over again? And then it was like a fuck that moment where I was like, you know what? No, like, I actually have 17 years of data that shows me the power of people in business. And why wouldn't I share that message, right? And so it's really interesting because there's a lot of belief and ideology out there. And the thing about it is, and you're kind of touching on this a little bit, both of you, but like intuitive leadership, listening to our heart, moving from a space of our values is so underrated. And when we learn to like lead and live and lean into that, everything changes. This might sound a little bit woo-woo, but I really believe the universe conspires to help guide us on the path that is going to be like in everybody's highest good, right?
I feel like a lot of, and again, not to like inherently gender this, but I do feel like a lot of women, aspiring women entrepreneurs or existing women entrepreneurs are told that exact same thing. This isn't how business is done. But the funny thing is, and I, just wrapped up a stint as interim CEO of Alberta Women Entrepreneurs. So I got the privilege to like meet and learn about so many different women-owned businesses. And one of the things one of my team members said to me was like, often women are successful in business because we do it different. So when somebody says to you, oh, that's too soft, that's not how business is done, I think that's the ever fucking point.
Yeah.
It's like that is the reason for doing it this way, because that's not how it's done, and we want it to be done different.
Yes.
And so I think often when we go for it, we're told to go for advice, right? By all the people who know, and the successful consultants and business owners, and get a mentor and yada, yada, yada. But then when we get told, well, that's not how it's done, by someone who does it the way it's always been done, but the whole reason we're getting into it is to change the way it's done.
Yeah.
We end up listening to that rather than listening to our heart, in that trust that
Yes.
and if somebody doesn't hire you because they are not open to that, they're not your people.
Yeah.
And that's
and
a
they
scary
haven't.
thing, I will acknowledge.
Yeah, they haven't. And I've had to be like, oh God,
Yeah.
right? And really like sit with that. But I was like, yeah, they're not my people, right?
But we do spend a lot of time being told that, what we're doing isn't the right thing, or it's not how business is done, or it's not how it's done. And that is why women are leaving in droves from professional positions. They're going off and running their own businesses. They're moving out faster than they're being promoted. So when you enter a corporate environment,
Women are ruining the workplace.
oh
Don't
yes,
forget.
of course, yes. Apologies.
Thanks for pointing that one out, New York Times.
But yeah,
Oh my
we see situations throughout our life where we're told we don't fit in, right from childhood as women. So I think when we're in a position where we can run the show and do our own thing, and then we're told we don't fit in, it's like, you know what? We've been hearing that the whole time. So now that I'm in a position to do something about it and take a creative idea to the next level, I'm just gonna fucking do that.
Yeah.
Like that's the way it's gonna be. So I think that we're always hearing that, and that's a big part of what we do at Stay Spicy. Is, you know what, your story is yours, your idea is yours, your authenticity is yours, and you have to own it. And that's where we get, business with heart and great leadership.
Yeah. That's why I love you too. When I met you two, I was like, ooh, you're never getting rid of me now. But anyway, that's a whole story for later. But the resistance is an indicator for me.
Yeah,
100%.
So that is actually something now for me, like where I come up against the edge. I'm like, yeah, no, okay, there's something here. I'm rubbing people the wrong way, and not like in a bad way, but I'm making them think
uncomfortable.
differently. Yeah. And if I can get people to shift just a bit, we only need to shift 1 degree to have like a total paradigm change.
Yep.
Right. And so when I feel that come up, I'm like, ooh, there's something here. And so I actually spend time, as a leader now thinking about like, what does that mean?
So you see it as a challenge.
Oh yeah.
It's
I'm
not something to deter you. I hope
No.
everyone hears that, because you're going to hear a lot of, oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't do. Well, here's what you need to think
Watch
about.
me.
Oh, don't fly too close to the sun, Lynette.
Yeah.
We've heard everything. So no, that's interesting to see it as a challenge. I love that. I think everyone should take that and run with it.
And it's not always easy, right?
No.
No.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, right? So much of, I think the work we have to do as women, especially as entrepreneurs and leaders, is our own inner work. Like this is everything, right? And connecting with who we are, loving who we are, being confident in who we are, even if we don't show up the way we want to sometimes. Like when we were talking about this podcast, you're like, oh, we'll just roll with it. I was like, that's perfect, because, and if I fuck
And it's
it up,
not for
I fuck it up.
everyone. Yeah, we're not for everyone. So we're like,
Yeah.
and if somebody's like, no, that's not for me, we're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, totally.
Go
right?
with peace. Like,
But
do
this
your thing.
inner work is the core of it all, right?
Yeah.
And this old kind of, maybe we'll call it a masculine way of doing business, is all outward focused, outward facing, right? And so what's
Image
happening?
driven.
Yes. And so now there's this shift to this internal. And what does it mean to actually leave a legacy that doesn't mean necessarily something to the world, but something to me? Like on that last day when I close my eyes, how am I going to feel about what I did? I actually don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks, right?
Yep.
Like I want to feel good about the minutes that I spent.
Well, and I think too, if you're someone who's wanting to start a business, that's actually a a why for a lot of particularly women entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in Canada. Like Canada has the highest incidence of like social enterprise like in the world. And so it's a driver for a lot of people. So if your driver for your business isn't, let's say, revenue growth is not your like biggest driver, but it's that you want to make change. One thing I keep in mind as I started my own business for that reason is like I was sick of how things were going in the workplace and how people were doing things, and I didn't feel like I was able to affect that change from within these systems. But now working with people in systems, I realize that I can't change. I'm not trying to change everybody's mind, and I'm not trying to change every system. I'm only looking for the people who are open and accessible to it.
Yeah.
And so if that goes back to that, like if somebody is not aligning with or jiving with what you're selling, who you are, how you show up, that's okay. They're not your people.
Yeah.
Just find the people. The people will find you, but also find the people that do, and they'll grow. There's actually, I think, more than we realize, but they just aren't using their voice. They aren't given a voice.
Yeah.
And so then when people like you step out into that full authenticity, it gives people permission to, and it gives them a place to go.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's so powerful. And so much of this comes back to, as you were talking there, I kept having this like intuitive thought. And it was like our intuition matters so much for us as women entrepreneurs, and like how we listen, right, to the things that are quietly speaking to us. I always say our intuition doesn't scream. It's not that voice screaming in our head. It's that like quiet kind of whisper. And there's been multiple, looking back, multiple very clear moments in my life where that intuition has been like, listen to me, and I haven't. And so that's been a lot of like my journey. Like when we were in Tokyo, we didn't really get into this today, but when we were in Tokyo and my husband got sick, I knew before he got sick that something was wrong. And I remember being like, am I crazy? And like second guessing, and something just kept saying like, something's wrong, Allie, something's not right here. And he went and he ran that marathon, and it was like the night after that I woke up and he was in the coma. And I remember even texting my sister and I said, she's like, how's Japan? And I was like, something is not quite right. And I don't even know how to articulate, but I felt it and I knew it. And then when I woke up and that happened, I was just like, holy shit, right? And it took me a long time to come back to realize that like I knew. And I think when we can tap into that, that's when the real magic happens of like building a really amazing business, making impact and change in the world, bringing something forward that changes people's lives. So we have to learn to listen.
I think we tend to overrule or override our intuition a lot of times, right? We rationalize it away, we argue with it. And a lot of that also does come from outside. Other people, you know, the things that we think we should believe or should know or should act, we should all over ourselves.
Yeah.
People should on us all the time. And so, yeah, and you're right. We do feel like our intuition is a quiet voice. And so in order to actually listen to it, we need to drown out all the noise and be still. And like intentionally. And you may not always know, I found this anyway, I don't always know what my intuition is trying to tell me, but I acknowledge that it's trying to tell me something. And that's the moment to be still and to see where it goes and to trust. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that leads back to the emotional side of business, which we're also told to kind of stuff in the closet, right?
There's no emotions in business. There's no crying in baseball.
The passion, you know, I hear Arlene Dickinson yelling at Kevin, you know, well, business is emotional. People have feelings around this stuff.
Yeah.
But also, you know, the ideas of freedom, the ideas of exploring the things that make you get up every morning. All this stuff's tied into the emotions. And without that, there's no passion. There's no get-go. There's no gusto, because freedom is not something you can put a price on.
Yeah. Yeah. We lost somebody in our community. I found out yesterday, so it's pretty recent news. And he passed away of COVID, so it was just like, oh my God. And he was part of Original Joe's and worked with us, and he's done lots of work with me since then. And he's had a huge impact in like my office and my house and how I set it all up. And I sat this morning and I was on a coaching call before I came here, and I was looking and I was like, you know, it's okay to be emotional. You know, it's okay to feel emotion about these things. It's okay to acknowledge that these things happen and to like create space to like truly feel. And so often people are just like, oh, no, it's okay. I'm going to do it. And I remember I told my assistant this morning and she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I took some time last night and just to think about it and, you know, be grateful really is what I try to do when things like that happen. And she's like, are you going to go do the podcast today? I was like, oh, for sure I am. And she's like, well, you can just kind of like, you know, push it aside. And I was like, but if it comes up, I'm also going to talk about it because this is part of it, right? And we're experiencing life as we're running our businesses. Yep. And we have to be able to find ways to integrate all of it, because the moment we try to silo the experience is when we disconnect from that intuition, from that emotional, from that feeling. And then we find ourselves off track, right?
Yep.
So
I also, I mean, along those lines, I think it's so important for us all to tell the whole story. And whether that's, you know, I'm working through a lot of emotions and, you know, dealing with some difficult stuff right now, or yeah, I was successful in building 17 businesses, but the first one was fucking up.
it was in danger zone.
I mean, when Sherry talked about conferences that she's been to where, you know, they didn't resonate, I mean, I used to cringe every time. This was, you know, over the years where there'd be like a women's speaker, a women's conference, and they'd get up on stage and just talk about how successful and amazing they were. And it's like, great, good for you. But that was not relatable for me. Right. And then I think it just unintentionally, hopefully, puts this pressure on other people to feel like, whether it's about being a leader or owning a business, where you hear about these people who grew a business to, you know, these many millions of dollars. And I'm like, well, that's never going to be me. I don't know how to get there. And, you know, I'm still struggling with this and that. And it's like the people that can speak to that part, that's what I want to hear. That's what's inspiring to me. And it's also, if more people were open and honest about that, I think that you would have more aspiring entrepreneurs get over that fear barrier, which is ultimately like the fear of failure, fear of uncertainty. I think what gets them over that is not knowing that, the certainty of like, I'm going to be super successful, is knowing that there are other people who have the same feelings, have gone through the same things, and that there's a community for you. And so that is just something I don't think that's ever been talked about when it comes to business.
Yeah.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head there, because we hear authenticity all the time. We hear authenticity, building authentic businesses, being more authentic, but that goes both ways. You have to be really honest about the hard. You have to be honest about the sad. You have to be honest about the good. It's really about bringing your whole self, but it's also about telling your whole story. Like you said, you want to hear the start to finish. You want to hear everything that's happened. We're getting there, and I think there's an openness to be more authentic as leaders and business leaders. How do we kind of embrace that more? And is there an appetite for that in these kinds of spaces? Are we seeing that more? Are you seeing that more, Allie, in your work?
I'm definitely seeing it more in my work, for sure. I think it does come back to like the sharing of the story, though, right? And the whole story, and creating that space for it. Lynette, you were just really bringing me back to after everything happened with Chris. I remember I went back and, you know, I was leading the organization, and now I was doing it without him, right? And it was this really big shift for me. And I only lasted like 2 or 3 weeks at work, and then I had this complete nervous system breakdown. So I was like pulling into work one day, and, you know, I kept being like, you got this, right? Like, it's like that. And it's like, oh my God, you don't got it. So I pull into work, and I go to get out of my car, and I have this complete mental breakdown. Like, literally, like nothing I've ever had before in my life. I put my hand on my door, and I go to get out, and I'm just like, and I just feel all this emotion that I've been stuffing down and trying to like mask, because there is so much going on in my life that I actually don't know how to handle it all. And so I'm going about it all, you know, what I would call the wrong ways. But I think we have to learn these lessons sometimes too. And this was a really big lesson for me. And so I remember I was like, okay, just cry. And then I was like, like ugly heaving snot. Like I could not like pull my shit together. And so I remember calling into one of the guys inside, and I was like, hey, might sound a little weird, but can you like come out here and talk to me? And he was just such an amazing supporter through everything that happened. And I remember he opened my car door and he was like, oh shit. He just kind of like kneeled down and put his hand on my leg and he just kind of waited. And I remember I was like heaving and sobbing and crying. And finally I said to him, I don't think I can do this. Like, I can't fucking do it. Like, I don't know how to do this. And I remember in that moment, he was like really calm and he turned and looked at me and he was like, that's okay. And he like gave me this permission to just like not be okay. Like, I thought even though all of these shitty things had happened in our lives, that I still had to find a way to be okay, to show up, to lead the organization, to like be the person. And so I gave myself permission to fall apart. And sharing that with our team was one of the most vulnerable things I ever did. And I didn't know how to do it. It actually took me quite a while to explain to them what had happened, but I had to leave again. So I had to leave. I had to go take care of myself. I was like emotionally ruined. I put on like 20 pounds. My hair was falling out. My skin was all fucked up. Like, I was like ruining myself in result of what had happened. And it was that like journey for me and this realization that like nothing's ever going to be perfect. It's going to be really fucking messy. And it's just like figure out how to show up along the way and just stay authentic to you. And so once I was ready to talk about it, I did. And I remember the reciprocity, the reciprocation from like the people on the team. It was just incredible, like beyond my expectations. I think I still thought, even once I told them, that I would be judged, right? And they'd be like, oh yeah, well, shit, she can't do this, right? Like, better find a new leader. But they were like, it shifted everything, you know? And then we went into a global pandemic, and I was just like, that was so important that happened, because we'd cracked a layer of vulnerability that was so necessary for what was about to happen in our lives too. So yeah, there's just so much. It's like, right? You know? And so what do? We just need to stay real, challenge the bullshit, right? Like, we don't have to do things the way they've always been done. And the more we can stay authentic to ourselves, I think the better we show up. So, yeah.
What would you say to someone who maybe wants to just dip their toe into that vulnerability or authenticity just to see if people like it?
Well, I'd say just dive in, but I get that for sure.
A lot of people are scared, right?
Sure.
Especially because in general, in business, in society, and leadership positions, like everybody talks about authenticity, like you said, like everybody's like, be authentic, authenticity. But the systems don't encourage it.
Yes.
Saying it doesn't mean that it's supported.
Yes, and I've been in spaces where I've seen it not supported and worked with some teams and organizations and been like, yeah, this is like, I can't help you, right? Like, if we can't create space to hold that for each other. And so there is something to that. So if you are thinking about being vulnerable or more authentic, especially in your workspace, and it's something that's not nurtured or accepted, I think you need to actually think about that. And you need to think about where there is safety in vulnerability first before you break into non-safe spaces. And if you're working in a space that this isn't nurtured and this is something that's important to you, you really might want to consider what you're doing there, right? Because as my reflection today, you only get so many minutes, right? And what are you doing with those minutes? So that's number one, like, create safe space to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to test those waters. If you're not doing that, or you're finding you're living outside of your, what I would call like your true nature. And then like, we teach people how to treat us. So I say this all the time in coaching with executives, and they're like, oh, I'm my team. And I'm like, well, we teach people how to treat us, right? And so if you want to start making some shifts, start creating some boundaries around your authenticity, around how you want to show up vulnerably, have different conversations, ask different questions. And it doesn't have to be this big tidal wave of change. I always say the most impactful change happens in like little 1% shifts every day. And it comes back to this focus on you. And what do you want, right? What kind of experience of life do you want? And if you want a more authentic, more vulnerable one, well, well, then start creating it for yourself, right? Is it easy? No. I get that for sure. And I've been on that journey. But I will tell you on the other side of it, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't trade any of it for anything.
And I do think that is core, or at least a part of a core to why a lot of people start their own business. Because in the traditional workforce, or whatever organization they're working in, they can't be authentic. They can't. And regardless of what authenticity means to them, where they can't openly have a family. They can't decide for themselves. They can't show up as themselves. And so then they say, screw it. I'm going to go create my own thing where I can be. And so I guess that, hold on to that. Like if that was a part of the why for starting your business, don't let it go. Don't then start your business and then try to be like everybody else. Because you might as well just go back and get a regular job.
Yeah.
Which I've promised myself I will never do.
Me
ever
either.
again.
Absolutely not.
Once I'm on the other side of that authenticity like line, I'm like never going back.
Yeah. Well, you can't,
No.
right? It's like you've crossed the threshold. You've crossed the bridge.
100%.
Left the
Burnt
cave.
Yeah.
Burn
all
that
the
bridge
moors.
down.
Yeah, all of it. Like there's no going back for me, but that's okay, right? Like like I said, I'm sure you would agree. It's so much more beautiful over here, right?
It is. It's not easy.
No.
It's hard as fuck, but it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And, you know, if I could ask you one final question from me would be, you know, you mentioned on our pre-call that your business can be a house of cards or it can be a castle. How do you build a castle, Allie?
Well, I do think there's a reflection into a lot of what we talked about, which is cool because I feel like you're pulling the golden thread. But I feel like the house of cards we create. So it's up to us. You know, obviously we have to create business structure. We have to have a plan. We have to have a way to generate revenue and all of these things. But ultimately, business is energetics. And some people hate it when I say this, but like you can have all the strategy in the world, but if you don't believe in what you're doing, if you're not showing up for yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, this is when the house of cards falls, right? Because we are the energy of our business. And so, yeah, the castle is built within us. It's actually not this like, it's not the inspired leader, this like whatever structure that's being created. The castle is what's happening inside of me, and that's what's creating this business because I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'm confident in what we're delivering and what we're doing. I feel like there's real change. Blending this whole health and leadership piece is so impactful from the experiences I've had, right? So I just keep, and that's how you turn it from a house of cards into a castle. But that's my personal perspective.
All right, one final question to you, which we would love to bust myths, obviously, on this podcast. So what is one entrepreneurship myth that you've heard or that you believed before? Somebody told you?
Well, the very first one, we actually had a few in our conversation, but the first one today is like that you have to know everything. And I actually now believe the less I know, the better. The more curious, the more open I can stay, the more I expand my thinking and take off those blinders, if you will, and create space just to get really curious instead of being like I hate the word master or you know what I mean? Like I'm a master of something. No, nobody's a master. And if we live our lives as like a lifelong learner and stay curious, I think that shifts everything in business. So there's this common paradigm that we need to know it all, and I actually think it's bullshit. So,
Bullshit. That's how we respond to myths.
yeah. Hopefully that was a good one for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Allie. As always, it's an amazing conversation with you. We laugh, we cry, we say fuck a lot.
Yeah.
I love that. Also love that about your keynotes too. Highly recommend. If you can get a ticket to anything Allie is speaking at, do it. You can find her online at
theinspiredleader.com.
There you go. Or just Google Allie Stone and like a whole bunch of stuff comes up. She's pretty famous. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Stay Spicy Inc. and on your favorite podcast platforms.
Stay spicy, y'all. Have a great week. Thanks for listening to the Stay Spicy podcast.
We love hearing from our listeners and want you to be part of our community. So connect with us on social media at Stay Spicy Inc.
And visit us online at stayspicy.ca.